We're right at 5 after 10. We could have a few questions if Adam and Mazdak want to sit here. So if you'd like to stay and ask a few questions, we would welcome that. We've got some microphones here.
One thing I noticed, you talked about those 5 guys. That's Australia and England and us and the US, yep. And that's all of them?
New Zealand, Australia.
New Zealand, right. Those are all white countries, okay? I mean, other countries are in the there's not, India's not in it, Germany's not in it, France is not in it, the Scandinavian countries aren't in it.
Right.
These are all like America and its friends.
Yeah.
So this is all like the people who are working there, these are all America and its friends, with all America and its friends' values and worries and concerns. And yeah, they're worried about losing empire, and they're also worried about who their girlfriend's talking to. So this is almost like, say, Nazi Germany, where you got to have your papers all the time, or East Germany with the Stasi, where they're like, you're all on record. So is this kind of what we're looking at? But the one thing you mentioned, the Stanza exhibit in there, the one I see that a lot, and there's tons of data coming in there, but it's so much of it, there's a torrent, and you can't really make any sense of it.
Yep.
There's tons of it, and you've got to have an intelligence that can sort it out and tell you this is going to be a problem. And the little stories that they tell, they might be wrong. They're all really dark stories. You're going to die soon. You're not going to get your pension. You're going to get arrested. You're a terrorist. We're going to shoot you. You're drunk. We're going to arrest you. Nothing happy ever happens in these stories. It all looks pretty bleak and everything. And it's like we're building the worst kind of empire, or the people in charge are.
Well, one thing I would say to that is, luckily we're, especially us, Canada and the US, are probably in the position best to, talk out against such huge privacy kind of, I don't know the best way to put it, but we value our privacy a lot more than many other countries. And actually, if you look at political pushback and public pushback that's coming, a lot of it is generating, especially from Canada and in the US. And we still have democracy, we still have democratic systems and institutions that work. And so I think, yes, you could see it in a bleak way, but we've also seen a lot of progress. And I'm personally optimistic that we're in the best position to be able to affect that change.
One last point. Okay, I don't want to monopolize the conversation or nothing, but it looks bad now, but this isn't anything new. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover had a file on everybody.
That's right.
Just as a dumb example, there was a movie set in, this is like an entertainment type film, was set in an American Air Force base in Manitoba. And as a throwaway line, the guy from Washington who comes to solve the problem, this person, they had a file on a dairy farmer. And nobody thought this was funny, like the FBI would have a file on a dairy farmer who lived close to an American Air Force base in Manitoba. And this is, I thought, like, there's your surveillance state. There's literally anyone who could possibly be a problem. We've got a file on you. Now, as it turned out, the conclusions they drew were completely wrong, and there was a rational explanation that nobody saw because they were looking for trouble.
Right.
And they said, you were obviously watching these planes because you're a spy. And it turns out there was there's a rational explanation sort of thing. But this, what we're seeing now is just the latest step in a distrust or a mindset that's always been there.
Right.
And as you say, something you got to watch about, be careful of, because it's just going to get bigger. We're just going to hire more people to do this. Anyway, just want to make that point. And sorry, I won't.
No.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. Any other questions? I wonder, the two of you together, I mean, you presented such different pictures of the world. And I was wondering, were there any questions that you would like to ask each other?
Actually, one thing maybe you can talk about is how you think. Have you ever had an experience where you were trying to do something creative or create something artistic or create something and someone was watching everything that you were doing? Can you imagine that? Can you think about how that would affect your creativity, how that would change the way you would act and what you would produce?
I'm not sure if that's ever happened to me. I do think I think my own view of technology or our relationship with technology is one which is not a technological positive outlook, but also not the polar opposite of that, right? This kind of fatalistic worldview. Even though I think lots of things are terrible, and of course I was aware of some of these things before, but I always find a little bit of solace in the incompetence of humans and machines, technology, and so when I'm working with technology, I think that's why a lot of my projects have this internal circular logic, or machines that are useless in some way. That their operation is manifesting their uselessness, or an element of that. And so I definitely feel like when I am working with technology, it's important for me not to be a cheerleader for technology, for a particular company, or for even the lifestyle itself. My job is to kind of to bear witness to these advancements which are happening, whether I like them or not, and to kind of find these odd moments where the technology seems almost human, or the humans seem almost mechanical, or there's something funny there, or something ridiculous about it, or absurd, and to highlight that, because that sort of mirrors the way that I I feel about technological advancement. So it's not really motivated by somebody spying on me, but it's more motivated by the fact that hopefully somebody is looking at the art at the end of the day. and so I do want it to mirror my own ethics in the larger sense of how I think things should operate. Yeah. I had a question also for you, and I wonder, like, one solution is to create this zone of privacy, right? Like, there are these things you can do to disguise your identity online, or make sure there's stronger protections. Is another strategy would be to spam, like, you know what I mean? Like, if in a sense, like, the less information you put about yourself online, the easier it is for an algorithm or an analyst to determine what the patterns are. Is the oversharing that we usually think of as negative, like posting stuff all the time and all that, does that have this kind of could it have an effect where it actually is clogging the system, not just in the sense that you need more man hours or new technology to decipher it, but that there's so much material that is contradictory, that your identity is so contradictory online that the analytical tools are no longer useful?
That's an interesting perspective. Honestly, I'd have to go with kind of the obvious thing that comes to my mind, is that I think whoever's kind of looking at it isn't really double checking whether what you say today is like consistent with what you said yesterday or not, but whether you said something that they can kind of connect the dots.
To a pre-existing narrative that they have in one kind of thing. Yeah.
So you know, if like one day you were to say this thing is great and the next day say this thing is terrible, the same thing is terrible, maybe they'll just look at something is terrible and then kind of form their own narrative around that. Right. That would be interesting to see, you know, when artificial intelligence gets created, whether that would affect them in any way. Because I think human error is really high when it comes to these things. There's a lot of kind of bias, personal bias and whatnot that would affect it. So that would be interesting. I haven't heard of tools that seek to do that, though. Maybe you should collaborate with someone and come up with that.
Well, I always think like bots, you know, like I mean, most of my encounters with like surveillance is companies spying, you know, because they want to sell me something. They want to determine my consumer profile, which of course can be shared later with other agencies. But yeah, I always wonder if like all these bots and all these technologies, if there's like some sort of way of like just like turning it around. You know, can you use spam bots to spam Justin Trudeau to and his cabinet to overturn Bill C-51? Like, if you can use these technologies like for your own for the right purpose in the wrong way,
there's
sort of
also
thing.
there's
some
these things
poetic
called
justice.
chatbots
Right,
that are kind of like talk to you and try and mimic the way humans talk to each other. If you put two of them and they start talking to each other, things just go a little bit nuts. Like there's videos of these things, and if you watch the results of it, it's very funny. So I'd recommend that if anything else.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, both of you. That was fantastic. Really like to a round of applause. And thank you so much for staying and coming to the event. It was a great event. I enjoyed it so much. And yeah, wait until the next one. Thank you.